horse BMWs here this weekend, all in totally different paint schemes, but easy to spot nevertheless. The white and yellow of the 100 car is the best placed machine.
Yes, one can only imagine that there are different commercial arrangements going on for each of those Falcon Horse teams. Falcon Horse Motorsport, hugely experienced at the Nürburgring, but as many of the teams run as commercial operations, you go along to them, you say what you want to do, and fees and such like are then arranged and agreed.
One of 3 KTM Crossbows heading into the first corner. This is the 924 car in its blue and flat grey colours. So 924 is the ESET Motorsport car.
Yeah, they're all entered by ESET.
I beg your pardon,
in
right.
fact. Having come out of the Writer Engineering works, entered by ESET, who those with long memories will remember used to run Prince Leopold von Bayern in the DTM back in the early 90s, and ESET Motorsport then behind all 3 of these KTM Crossbows. That car, the blue and black one, the 924 car, still running in 3rd place, in 2nd place in the Cup X class. The Cup X class still being led and in 26th place overall now by the 925 Ferdinand and Johannes Stuck driven car.
Then number 94, 95 and 926, which is very easy for us all to remember. The 960 car is the Cup 3 leader, and 960 has always been there or thereabouts at the pointy end of the field. What isn't happening is the cars, for example, in 3rd and 4th in Cup 3, being able to get anywhere near to these 2 that I've already mentioned, the 960 and the 979. I've mentioned the car 3rd in the class, which is still the 941 entered Cayman, by the way. 941 is another Gigaspeed Team Get Speed car. 960 heading then onto Hatson back and down past that spectator banking to driver's right. 458 is in 74th position, running in the now which class is that? Oh, V5 division, 7th in that part of the race, and 458 is the FK Performance Porsche Cayman.
Just looking down into the TCR class, which is usually pretty closely fought, but at the moment that's being led fairly convincingly by the car number 802, which has stormed into the lead of TCR. That's the Gulden Leuchter Volkswagen Golf. Good battle in the class though, because it has 802 due a pit stop, and that will put it back, I think, into the grasp of 820, who is currently 2nd in the TCR class, the Seat Leon, and then an Audi RS3 is 3rd in TCR. So battle in TCR between Volkswagen, Seat and Audi.
And I noticed the 804 Matilda Racing Volkswagen Golf didn't qualify, or at least he didn't practice in the training laps, but I presume the car didn't take the start, the 804 machine. The 802 showed good pace 2 weekends ago in VLN 3. We've got Golfs, we've got Seat Sport Leons, Audi RS3s, the Peugeot 308 Racing Cup car of Bonk Motorsport, another Audi RS3 from Bonk as well. Nice, different amounts of chassis, different types of chassis, I should say, within the TCR class. Meanwhile, the 911 car using plenty of the track and a bit more, all 4 wheels off on the approach to Brunchen, and again another great place to spectate from. So this 911 car, whether it's had Romain Dumas or Richard Leet at the wheel, both drivers have had to become well used to having traffic mere centimetres off the back bumper. The 55 Renault pursued the 911 for several laps. Now got the 100 car tailing it. We've also had the 31 Fricadelli Porsche tailing the 911 as well. And so far, neither driver, Dumas nor Leitz, has crumpled to this pressure.
Just going to be interesting to see how close is the gap between this battle, which is the third and fourth place battle between the 911 and the 100 car, where it is. Here's the race leader now, in fact, the Falcon Motorsports BMW car number 3, having made its second pit stop with an hour and 40 minutes to go. It's going to need another splash of fuel before the end. It's not going to be a full length pit stop though, and the final pit stop, if it's in the last half hour, isn't constrained by minimum pit stop time. So I just wonder, is that the Fricadelli Porsche just in front of the BMW, or is it another red and white Porsche? The camera is focusing on the BMW, so I'm guessing that it's just another red and white Porsche which is ahead. No, it's not, it's the Fricadelli car. Yes. So that is the new race leader. So the Fricadelli car, number 31, yes, back into the lead of the race, Johnny.
Okay, right, so definitely on here for an intense next part of the stint with the number 31 Porsche. That's the Pro entry from Fricadelli, with Norbert Siedler and Frank Stippler, the drivers, on its Vulcan tyres, as is the BMW right behind, also on Vulcan, sponsored by Vulcan indeed. And the number 3 car, which has led for several laps, Steph Dusseldorp and Jörg Müller, the drivers of that car. And with an hour and 40 minutes to go, these cars separated by a couple of car lengths as they head into the easy right-hander partway around the Grand Prix Strecke.
Now, you can partly explain that change by the fact that the Fricadelli Porsche's stint was slightly shorter, and so therefore its pit stop should have been slightly shorter. But equally, just wonder whether perhaps it was a longer pit stop than it needed to be for Steph Dusseldorp handing the car, we guess, over to Jörg Müller. So he's back at the wheel. So those two cars running in the lead of the race, and I'm going to suggest that it's Norbert Siedler back at the wheel of the Fricadelli car. So BMW from Porsche first and second. Up into third place is now the 911 Porsche. So Richard Leitz back to the 911 Porsche, and he has, as we've been saying, Johnny, the number 100 Falcon Horse Road Racing. It's also got quite a lot of Dunlop sponsorship on it. BMW immediately behind it. They're just turning out onto the Hatson back now, third and fourth.
And the yellow and grey car was third in Cup 3, 941. Just heading through that same part of the track as well. Where do we find 941 now? Still third in Cup 3, behind that fascinating battle which contains 979 and 960. And they're all sort of occupying the same bit of tarmac now too. So 941 might have gathered a bit of that ground back again that it lost earlier on in the race. The Volkenhorst Motorsport BMW then, following the 911 Porsche, heading now down the dip and towards the road bridge, just ahead of Flugplatz. So 911, third on the road, but the 100 Volkenhorst Motorsport BMW running in fourth place. Then it's the 44 Mercedes AMG, which does tend to find itself a bit further up the order as we head towards the latter stage of each of the stints. And the 44 car still expected over the line to complete 16 laps.
I'm not sure that it will be, because I think it's still on its out lap. So I suspect what we'll get is the number 35 Volkenhorst BMW coming through in fifth place when the timing screen updates itself and shows us the positions at the end of lap 16.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Ooh, big
cars, yes.
Cloud of dust kicked up there by Richard Leitz at the wheel of the 911 Porsche. He wasn't really avoiding the traffic, but he was giving the traffic enough room. And as he went down, clipped the left-hander, kicked up the dust, and possibly done a few stones as well into the face of the number 100 BMW.
And that's just a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong around this place. You might be planning an overtake with quite a bit of insight and experience, having raced around this place now for 2 hours or so between you and your co-driver or drivers. But then if you just pick the wrong point to get by, you maybe think that the slower car has seen you, and that's not the case. And again, the 100 car having to thread its way now past a Cayman 2, but that was good driving from the Cup 3 driver, and BMW got through with very little delay. But so quickly this race can change. If it was a big incident, we still don't yet know what happened with the 55 Renault, whether that connected with some slower traffic to cause the puncture. Might have been a bit too much of curb hopping, which has stressed the side walls of the front right, as the 100 BMW now threads its way between that small Mercedes. So not the Benz number 44. As I've said, there's 2 Mercedes in this race, and the smaller car is the SLK 350 of Singh and Singh, car 404. The Cleaver as well had found similar part of the asphalt as well. The 621 car needing to be lapped there, as the 100 car in danger of losing sight. A little bit of the 911, isn't it, up the hill?
I agree absolutely, Johnny. Yes, I think the Ricard Leitz has just got the legs a little bit of whoever is at the wheel, Christian Krogner's, by who I thought was going to be on the rotation there, but then a little bit of traffic suddenly holds up Ricard Leitz, and all of a sudden the BMW is right behind the Porsche again. Yeah,
because the Porsche needed to force the gap and make sure that the 2 slower drivers had seen him, so that takes a bit of time, and all that work actually aids the 100 BMW, because the hole is generated, the Porsche gets through, and the BMW doesn't have to warn anybody, because that's already been done by Richard Leitz. And then the gap comes down once again. And this is why we love the Nordschleife, because despite a large lead heading up towards the carousel, pretty much all of that negated as they leave and now reach Hoeracht.
And as we suggested it would, so the number 35 Jordan Tresson BMW, the dark blue car, has moved up to 6th place as best of the rest. Then it's the number 62 car, which is the SP7 leading Porsche, is next up, but owes us its second pit stop still. Then in the next up behind that in 7th place is number 44, the Landgraf Mercedes. So finishing up now currently in 7th place. In 8th place is the number 30 Fricadelli Porsche, and in 9th place is the Z4, number 36 from Valkenhorst Motorsport. And then in 10th place, the leading Cup 2 Porsche is the number 1 car of Christopher Mies and Alexander Mies and Steve Jans and Tim Scherbart.
So gap between the Porsche and the BMW has come down as we described, and it's remained fairly constant since then. There's more traffic though this time, and the 911 Porsche can't get through, so this is the BMW's perfect chance now to get right on the tailpipes, and that huge gap that Richard Leitz had worked so hard to build has just disappeared in the space of, well, 2 corners effectively. First of all, the run into the carousel, and then about a minute later the run into Schwalbeschwanz. And because there is only one line through there, if you're caught behind traffic, it means that the SP9 out in front has to back off, wait for the opportunity, and that allows your chaser to become right with you again.
But of course, Ricard Leitz knows as well as anybody how this is a game where you have to just be a little bit patient, and you can't afford just to take those risks. Now, the Fricadelli Porsche, number 31, the red car, being shown on our screens now in splendid isolation. Remember, as they came across the line at the completion of the previous lap, the gap between them was less than a second. As they come across the line this time, I reckon, Johnny, that's up to about 4 or 5 seconds. So it's been a good, clean run on this most recent lap from Norbert Ziedler, and he's opened up the gap then between himself and the number 3 Falcon BMW, and his fascinating battle then. Still got over an hour and a half to run, and still another pit stop to be made. And of course, the tactical aspects of that are going to enter into the equation. And the gap back to the third and fourth place battle, which is the 911 Porsche Ricard Leitz and the number 100 BMW. So we've got two Porsche BMW battles, first and second, and then third and fourth. But those two battles are separated by just 20 seconds, so quite possible for those two to concertina up in the remaining hour and a half.
31 leading number 3, and then it's the 911 car ahead of the 100 machine, and that gap has really tumbled as well. But as Paul quite rightly says, on to lap 18 we go. Seidler, or the 31 Fricadelli Porsche, versus the number 3 Falcon Motorsports BMW, now almost 4.5 seconds, whereas the gap between the 911 Porsche and the 100 BMW has gone the other way and is separated by 4.5 car lengths. They're about to have to negotiate one of many Opel Astras in this race, and V2T is where we find some of the Opel Astra J OPCs, but also Class H2 and Cup 1 is all Astras. So just because you have an Astra and you bring it to the Nordschleife, it doesn't automatically tell that it goes into Cup 1. We have 4 Opel Astras here this weekend, spread across 3 different classes, in fact. This time, now Richard Leitz taking a bit more of a risk, going around the outside of some traffic, trying to buy himself more time through the Hats and back. But again, he's got himself caught up behind another of the... Oh, that's a BMW M235i, isn't it? The Porsche could slot ahead of it, though. Now, this is one of the guys that's in the top portion of 235i's, I think. That was 964. 694, and it was in the leading gaggle in the early stages. Remember, we had 5 BMWs altogether, and 694, where has that slipped to now in the order? I'll tell you that in a second. Meanwhile, the Porsche of 911 heading down towards Arenberg, another really busy portion of the track though, and no matter how much ground is able to be increased by Richard. Oh, now this might be telling, because the VW Golf from Matilda Racing had to find a bit of track action, and in the process balked the 100 car through no fault of the TCR pilots' error there, or ways. However, the 802 car is now going to slice its way past one of the Pixum Team Adrenaline cars in turn. And this 802 car is not short of speed, but compared to an SP9, it's night and day. Still can't get by this gold, black and white car, and only now can the 100 car apply the throttle, and the 911 Porsche is away in the distance.
Very nearly out of sight, isn't it? But it's a great illustration, isn't it, Donny, of just how many decisions the drivers are having to make out there, how much they're having to think, okay, do I go now? Do I wait? Do I step back? And you could see that I don't actually know who it is, but if it's Christian Krogner's behind the wheel of the 100, we could see how he was kind of waiting for the TCR car to make its move to get past the slower car before it made his own move, rather than trying forcing the issue. And it's all that kind of thing. You've not only got to think what do you want to do, but you also got to think about what the guy in front is going to want to do, and just not just think about what is going to happen, but what is going to happen as a consequence of you wanting to do something else.
120th overall is the 535 Toyota GT86, but it doesn't really matter where it is in the overall standings. Looking to try and win that class that contains a lot of GT86s, and car 535 being the Toyota Swiss Racing Team entered car from Cup 4. Manuel Amweg and Frederick Jährli, the 2 Swiss drivers.
and the SP7 leader, Johnny, the number 62 car, has got itself up into 6th place overall, still to make its second pit stop. But this is the kind of thing that you were describing we might see. The number 62 not having the pace to bubble up to the top on this cycle of pit stop, so he's had to make do. I mean, he'll make a few more places. In fact, no, he probably won't actually, because everybody ahead of him has already made their second stop. So number 62 in 6th, that's as high as he's going to get. The Frank Kaling, Mark Gindorf, Christopher Brook driven SP7 Porsche, the GT America car, currently running in 6th place, but still with its second pit stop to come, as is the number 30, the second of the Fricadelli Racing Team cars, the one that Klaus Abelin shares with Sabina Schmitz. That car still to make its second pit stop, and my guess would be, as I think we saw Klaus Abelin in the car, Sabina Schmitz will most likely have started it, so it'll be Andreas Ziegler to take over for the final stint when that car finally comes in for its pit stop, its next pit stop. That's in the pits at the moment, in fact, the number 30 car. This will be the final pit stop, I reckon, and see if we can have a look inside and see whether that is Sabina. Of course, we've seen the rear wing mirror, which doesn't really help in order to identify the driver.
Just trying to see whether the reflection in the mirror was displaying a helmet.
Turn the camera around and pointed at the driver. We'll be able to see who's at the wheel.
Yes. I don't think that's going to happen, though, somehow, because they're winding up now this car to be released. Hankook tyres for the 30 car.
Yes,
and the 31, I thought,
the
was
Pro-Am class cars, or not the Pro-Ams, the SP7 class cars. Whether they're also compulsory on Pro-Ams, I don't know.
Interesting. Okay, because I thought the 31 was on Falcons.
Yes, we did see that on Falcons.
I was trying to remember whether it was that car that we talked about over the blend line.
You're missing your walk down the pit lane, aren't you?
I am, rather. Yes. I mean, there are some that are very easy to spot. Clearly, the Falcon Motorsport, BMW, and Porsche are on those tyres, but there was another key player on Falcons as well, and I'm pretty sure it was a 31. The 30, though, as I say, crossed the pit lane exit line there. I'm not sure how closely that is policed across the weekend, but normally you're not permitted to do that, particularly into what is a wide entry to turn number 1, but it funnels down into effectively a single racing line. Absolutely fine in that instance to jink across to the racing line, but that's because there was nobody coming, and how did the 30 driver necessarily know that? So we'll wait and see whether there are any repercussions as a result. Now, Paul reckons the gap's coming down between 31 and 3. I would agree with him, because it was 4.4 seconds at the start of the previous lap. It's a lot less than that this time around. Probably only about 5 car lengths. They leave Tiergarten chicane and head back over the grid hatchings. This will put 18 laps in the book for the Siedler and Stippler Fricadelli Porsche, with behind then the number 3 BMW of Dusseldorp and Müller. And they're turning right, and the gap at the line still being shown as 4.4 at the moment on my screen. That will change and update very shortly, and we'll get 18 laps in the book, as I say.
But I think the other thing to keep an eye on is how far back the Ricard Leitz Porsche is from this battle for the lead, because that was 21 seconds on the previous lap, and we'll see whether or not Ricard has had a better run through the traffic. I mean, I think the point that we were making a moment ago, Johnny, the story of this is not necessarily how fast your car is, but is in how you deal with the traffic, and to an extent, how lucky you are with where you come across the traffic. If you come across a bit of traffic in a yellow flag zone, or you come across what I call multi-traffic, where you've got 2 cars having their own little battle, or wanting to do their own lappery, and you're trying to get past the pair of them, and that's where these gaps can go up, come down. But we do have this fascinating battle on for the lead then. The race leaders headed out onto the Nordschleife for the 19th time, with the Fricadelli Porsche, Norbert Ziedler possibly at the wheel, and there's the third placed car, the 911 Porsche Ricard Leitz, coming through and just goes out onto the Hatzenbach this time. Has he cleared a little bit of a gap between himself and the number 100 BMW. I think he has just opened up a bit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do wonder whether the tendency is for gaps to come down between leaders in traffic, or whether it's for them to be extended, because there are many opportunities, as you say, for the gap to come down. If you're caught behind back markers heading into the narrower parts of the circuit, you've either got to bide your time or then just take a couple of extra seconds to judge whether you can overtake or not. That gives the opportunity for the guy that's chasing you to close up. To my mind, and I haven't studied this with any great theory, but the opportunities for the gap to extend seem to come less frequently. We did spot an opportunity for Leeds. It was Leeds, wasn't it, in the car? He was able to duck past traffic and actually get ahead before the next corner, and then that proved crucial because the BMW got caught behind traffic into Arenberg.
Yeah, I think it goes either way. I mean,
I think it's a 50-50 thing.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, if you're close up behind the car ahead of you, then yes, you're able to kind of follow through on any gaps that are made. But on other occasions, you go through and then all of a sudden the gap closes because the car in front doesn't realise that there's two cars coming through, and then you have to kind of take avoiding action. So I genuinely think there is an element of chance about it. But I think as well, I mean, you mentioned a little while ago Ricard Leeds taking a few more risks. I think it's not necessarily the taking of risks, but the management of the risk as you try and just make sure that what you're doing is acceptable in terms of how it's going to work for you.
A Ferrari 458 steering from the rear, I would say, and a tremendous job by its driver of the 139 car. That's an SP8 entry from memory. Let me just check to confirm that. The 139 is from SP8. It's the Racing 1 Ferrari, or the NGK Spark Plug Racing Team 458. And yes, it's broken suspension, a track rod or similar, on the rear left corner. So slaloming its way through Tiergarten and actually doing a tremendous job. Thankfully, there's not a lot of traffic around either, ready to be sideswiped.
Lovely looking car, that, I have to say.
It's cracking, yeah.
Sadly, I think with work to be done in the pit lane, and normally a track rod, 15-minute job, maybe 20 minutes to get that changed, hour and 20 minutes still remaining. I don't think we've necessarily seen the last of that car. I think we have seen the last of the other Ferrari, just talking about Ferraris, the number 22 car, which was involved in that incident just at the Coca-Cola curve, going out onto the Nordschleife in the early part of the race, and that car, since being in the gravel, we haven't seen that the 22 Ferrari since then, Johnny.
And there was a little bit of doubt from some of the guys on the collective about what the Porsche did, number 4, to get back to the pits, because effectively for a short area of the track it was driving wrong way, and that's clearly going to be frowned upon by the clerk of the course. Might just be forgiven because it was so close to the pit lane entry from the Grand Prix track, and the fact that it was judging the gaps in the traffic relatively well. But
it's a tricky choice to make, isn't it? I mean, normally you should be guided by what the marshals are telling you, and if the marshals are not standing in front of you or waving at you that you shouldn't go, then basically you can.
Yes.
But I think in that case the car, I mean, it had gone past the point of no return. Although since then the car's been running well, the number 4 car, up to it's 9th in SP9, 23rd place overall, a lap behind the race leaders.
Here we are again in Cup 3. Yes, it is that
great,
same,
isn't it?
And as I say,
you said this would happen.
They are as close as they were on the opening lap. 9.60 and 9.79, still nose to tail, despite us now having 2 hours and almost 45 minutes in the book. And I still think they're going to remain like this until the checkered flag. Not quite sure who's going to win it, although predominantly it's been the 9.60 car ahead of 9.79, and no matter what 9.79 does, can't find a way by, unless this is a bit of canny driving, of course, from the crew that run at 9.79 and race 9.79, just to kind of stay with the class leader but not attempt an overtake until the final lap in classic Caterham style. But the Mabanol premium motor oil car, which is effectively a Müllner Motorsport entered car of Hamza Ovega, Alex Schuler and Moritz Krantz, pursuing still the 960 car of Konstanz Gussenbauer Moritz. Moritz Gussenbauer from Konstanz, I should say. Daniel Boyer and Fabio Grosser in the 960 car. So the track rod or similar, some sort of suspension part, is now being replaced on the Ferrari 458. Hasn't damaged the hub, hasn't damaged the wheel. It was just that the wheel was steering from that rear left corner. So far from ideal to have 3 steering wheels on your car, and a tremendous effort to actually get the car back in the pit lane and not clonk anybody else in the process.
It got a bit close on a couple of occasions.
It did,
so, didn't it?
Yes. And the pit lane entry here is pretty narrow as well. So, as I say, I can't unfortunately give credit to the driver, but we can name all of the drivers named against that 458.
There were certainly, I mean, whilst you look at the drivers, certainly indications that the team deserving the credit, though, because they were setting about getting that track rod replaced, and we're going to see that car out again, I'm sure.
Mike Jaeger, Stefan Koller and Christian Kohlhaas are the 3 drivers assigned to the Ferrari 458, and down the Dottinger Höhe,
no sight up ahead of any Grello Porsche ahead of the 100 BMW, looking out of the front windscreen of Christian Krogner's car. Oh, there it goes now across the start-finish line, and the now where is the Fricadelli Porsche, because we have the BMW Falcon tyres M6 car number 3 in the lead of the race, and I don't see a Porsche in that shot.
No,
I do see a Porsche, but that's the 911 car. What I'm looking for is the 31 Porsche.
Well, it might have pitted. It has pitted. 3 pit stops now being listed against car 31. And the gap, by the way, at the start of lap 18 was 0.6 of a second.
And that's very early. That's only 5 laps then from the 31 car. And at this point in the race, I wouldn't have thought that's a good tactical move. Although, no, I don't know. No, I won't say that because I don't know if it's true.
But are we looking for a splash for the 31 car at some stage?
Yes, but they can't really do a splash at this stage, because the only time that you can do a splash is at the end of the race, when you're in the last half hour of the race, when you're not constrained by minimum pit stop times.
Yes.
And my understanding of the regulation was, I was just wondering whether their previous stop had been the splash, and that was how they got the car into the lead. But of course, that doesn't work either. That's Norbert Ziedler.
Good spot.
The wheel of that BMW.
Happy to wave at the camera. So relatively relaxed in there, as most drivers probably are during a minimum pit stop call, because there's very little that they can do. They've stopped the car on its marks. It's probably gone up on the dolly jacks and spun. No, in fact, this car isn't spun through about 45 degrees, but nobody else nearby, front or back, is pitting at the same time.
But it does look routine, I have to say, from the 31 car. And Robert Ziedler then takes it back out onto the track, and despite only 6 laps out there, he will be now looking to make that his final pit stop of the race.
I wonder whether they're also stopping on that lap was the 35 car, but can't confirm that on the timing screen, so I think it was just another
31 Fricadelli car on the previous cycle through. The other thing to say, though, and I will say it whilst I keep my eye on it, is the 911 Porsche Ricard Leitz. I said to keep an eye on that gap. It's come down to 11 seconds now, so that's a gain of 10 seconds in the space of about 2 laps. So Ricard Leitz, the 911 Porsche, sharing with Romain Dumas, already twice a winner in VLN races this season, is really gunning for this one. And even though as ever, Manthey playing a fairly low-key approach. They're not to be written out of this one at all, because their car gaining hand over fist at the moment on the leading BMW number 3, which has Jörg Müller back at the wheel of it.
So into the hats and back goes the 31 car, the former race leader, and up ahead of it, just trying to identify whether that was the 35 BMW. I can't find any confirmation yet that the 35 came in, although it's still not being signalled at the end of lap 19 either, so just a little bit of a delay on our timing and scoring. As soon as that comes through, we'll let you know. The 100 car is still out there, hasn't yet stopped for a third time. That car scored at the start of lap 20 as in 4th place, but it will have jumped ahead of the 31 now, so effectively running 3rd behind the 911 and behind the race leader number 3. The 100 Valkenhorst Motorsport BMW heading down the hill towards Breitscheid, this really technical part of the lap. And I always get that bit of the track confused with the actual run down into the bridge. This is sort of precursor to the twisty bit into Breitscheid,
which is also quite steep downhill, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's almost banked left-hander, and then there's kind of a repeat section when you do finally reach the bridge and then begin the ascent up the other side.
The Aston Martin back out, having found some more fuel, and the Valkenhorst BMW, the dark blue car, PlayStation sponsored, not in the pits. Johnny have picked that one up at last. So it has continued on its way in 5th place.
Meanwhile, the Aston Martin Vantage heading into Tiergarten, pursued by not one but 2 Porsches, one of which is the 62 car, the former overall leader. And 62 should still be leading SP7. It is. And over the line it goes then. Remember, that car can run pretty deep into its stint lengths. Can get 9 laps out of the car at race speed. There's always the possibility that you might be able to eke out a 10th lap as well for the 62 car, but we're beyond the point where the 62 resumes, takes up the overall lead. We had that at the end of the first stint, but as with VLN 3, that hasn't happened since then. And SP7 elsewhere.
That car, Johnny, the 62, having just made its stop, that is going to be the last stop for the car now.
Right.
So yes, it will be able to complete the race on just those 2 stops.
Elsewhere in SP7, 2nd place is the 77 car, and 3rd position the 66. So their numbers relatively easy to remember. Car 77 being the 77 is the Rent to Drive Familiar Racing car, and that's Christian Menzel and Dmitry Lukovnikov, the driver based in Monaco, but I'm going to bet not from there originally. And then the 66 car in 3rd position in SP6. And that is the Car Collection Motorsport SP7 car of Klaus Koch, René Steurer and Peter Schmidt. Peter Schmidt, I've seen in a regular in Car Collection Motorsport Audis in the past as well. Car Collection taking victory, indeed, at Imola last weekend during the 12 hours. I think only the 2nd time an A6 AM car has taken an overall victory. Car Collection currently 3rd in SP7, running their Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car number 66. But they're both trying to chase down number 62, which looks like it might be pretty tricky to do shortly. So heading across the line in a moment or two, we're Paul and I briefly confused because we're looking at entirely the wrong race. I was aware there was a Grand Prix happening elsewhere in the world, and a lot of the drivers...
Saturday. They don't have Grand Prix on Saturday.
That's true. That will be qualifying then, I would imagine, at the Red Bull Ring. It's the next venue for the European Le Mans Series in couple of weekends' time, indeed.
Just to explain, for those people who didn't see the pictures, the television director found a pit that had the Formula One on the screen in the pit garage, and the camera was so closely zoomed in on it that it looked like we were actually at the Red Bull Ring rather than being at the Nürburgring.
But so many screens in some of these garages, you can have race coverage from VLN on one screen and the Formula One qualifying on the other.
And Coronation Street somewhere else, yes.
Probably, yes.
The GT America Porsche, meanwhile, being driven with absolute ease, it would seem. The number 62 car still leading the way in SP7. Christopher Brook, Mark Gindorf and Frank Reiling. Feeling it was going to be Christopher Brook who was going to drive the final stint, so it should be Christopher Brook at the wheel now of the SP7 race leading car. On the front of the field, the 100 BMW of Christian Krognes is up into third place now, or will it be fourth, following the pit stop? Yes, of course, the only car which has made his final pit stop, apart from the 62 of which we were just speaking, in SP7, is the 31 Fricadelli car. 31 car should be able to get to the end of the race from here, whereas the rest of the field, Ricard Lietz at the wheel of the 911 Porsche, Christian Krognes at the wheel of the 100 BMW, and the number 3, the leading BMW, which has Jörg Müller at the wheel, will have to make one more stop before the end of the race, with little over an hour still to go. And the race leader on his 21st lap now, having just gone through and completed it. And Ricard Lietz, once again, taking 2 seconds on that lap off the race leader. So it is Jörg Müller leading the way in the number 3 BMW, but Ricard Lietz closed now to within 10 seconds, Johnny, of the race leader. So that is continuing to come down, and it's not only going to be the time in the pits, it's going to be the time on the track.
The Motul-backed Fricadelli Porsche just sticking another lap on the 4 Porsche, which is a shame since that car's been repaired, offering great lap times. So a question of what might have been for the Falcon Motorsports Porsche. There's an hour and 5 minutes to go here on RadioLeMans.com, part of the Radio Show Limited network. We're bringing you 2 different commentaries today and through the course of the weekend, with full coverage as always for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship over on IMSA Radio, and here on RadioLeMans.com, VLN 4th of 9 rounds of this Nordschleife-based championship, together with the qualifying race for the Nürburgring 24 hours, and of course we brought you in late May the 24 hours itself. And cars continue to pour across the line from various different classes. Confirmation though so far of the positions in SP9. The number 3 BMW M6 of Falcon Motorsport leading the way then. That's the Stef Dusseldorp and Jörg Müller car, number 3, a full pro lineup, leading by 9.3 seconds from the 911 Manthey Racing Porsche of Richard Lietz and Romain Dumas. Third position is the 100 Valkenhorst Motorsport BMW M6 of Christian Krognes, Michele Di Martino and Matthias Henkeler. And then fourth position, the number 31 Fricadelli Racing Team Porsche of Norbert Siedler and Frank Stippler. That car fourth. Ahead of, in fifth position, number 35, the Valkenhorst Motorsport BMW, Jordan Tresson, Henry Valkenhorst and David Schielwitz.
Yes, just going back to the Valkenhorst car, that's losing quite a lot of ground now, and I'm thinking that maybe Michele Di Martino is at the wheel of that car now, which is why it is losing ground on the lead, or the second place 911 Manthey Porsche. Granted, Ricard Lietz is driving it away and closing in on the race leader, but I think Martino's time is not quite there to try and keep up. And the gap back to the next place car is somewhat misleading, because the 31 Fricadelli Porsche of Norbert Ziedler and Frank Stippler has already made its final pit stop. So that gap of 2 minutes will come down when the cars ahead make their pit stops. The car that still has to make a pit stop, but the one that Johnny was just talking about, the number 35 Valkenhorst car, that still has a pit stop to make and is in 5th place, so it's kind of dropped away off the lead battle a little bit.
Okay, and the order of this 150 car entry still cycling through if you're tuned to the live stream, but we'll keep you updated with what's happening out on track whilst those positions are cycled through. And now, does that mean that I have a bit more timing back as far as my principal screen I use for VLN 3, which sadly I've been missing so far, but it looks like it's finally kicked into action, so it might be able to update you with sector times here as well, which always helped me in terms of the order of cars. They're timed across the line, obviously, but that's the only time that the order is reordered, if you like. So not done on split times, which some timing and scoring systems do. But I was often able to just, with the naked eye, watch the order that the cars come through at sectors 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. For this track is so long, it takes 5 sectors. So, sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, just whilst Johnny sorts that, just to go through some of the class leaders in the Cup 2 class. We've already spoken about. That's the car number 1 of Alexander Mies, the Gigaspeed Porsche, which leads in that class. In the H4 class, the leader there is the car number 588 car, which is currently in it's the TAM Racing Porsche Cup car, Ralph Charles and Christopher Gerhardt, which leads in H4. SP7 is the number 62 car, Frank Frayling, leading the way in 11th place overall with that car. In the Cup X class, it's still the 925 KTM Bosco of Johannes and Ferdinand Stuck leading that class, and still a remarkable lead from the number 802 car in the TCR class, which really has stormed away in the lead of TCR, and 802 then leads that class quite comfortably in 20th place overall.
Okay, still waiting for cars to appear at the end of Sector 3, so my hope that this timing screen had cured itself has been dashed again, sadly, but at least it's updated to be relatively recent. We're on lap 21, yes, that's correct, and the gap at the start of this lap was 9.3 seconds, which is right as well. Some of those cars have now gone missing around that lap because the sector times aren't updating, sadly, and the number 3 car is already back to complete lap 21, going across the line now. So is the gap 9.3 seconds? Well, in fact, the 911 car is going to peel off and go into the pits. So 911 stops, the number 3 car does not, and stays out. We're just over 3 hours into this race.
Yeah, so 911 then with 21 laps on the clock. That was an 8-lap stint for Manthey Racing, and on the previous cycle through, the number 3 car went a further 2 laps on its stint. Now, 2 laps won't take it to within the last half hour, so even with the best will in the world, I don't think that the number 3 BMW is going to be able to make an unrestricted pit stop. It's going to have to stop for a minimum time. So it's going to be all fair, as it were, but it's going to be interesting to see whether or not the Manthey Porsche is going to be able to continue to keep this pace up that it was able to do, and certainly in that last stint to really close the gap between himself and Jörg Müller at the wheel of the Falcon BMW.
Clean of the screen for the 911 car. There's another Aston Martin in this race. That's my first real glimpse of the 188 car, which I might have mentioned actually. Oh yes, that's the Aviar Racing Aston Martin Vantage from the GT4 class, or SP10 as it's called in the VLN. So that's the Aviar Racing Team Mattol Racing prepared car of Wolfgang Weber, Eric Johansson and Mark Basseng doing a driving stint or two in that SP10 car as well. That car just working its way now back out onto the Hatson back and in the process being lapped. 100 in for a stop as well. So this car from third position making its final stop. Still the fuel nozzle yet to be removed from the cap of the 911 car. I'm sure they're moments away from that because everything else has been done on this car. All the checks, all the cleaning, making sure the screen is clear as well. And now the car is being waved to, oh, no it's not, it's being told to hold. Hold, whilst the last few seconds disappear from the stopwatch. They'll get the signal from the pit wall, which is to driver's left. Peering over are the crew now, just to make sure that the last few seconds are served. And this will be Roman Dumas to take the car to the finish. So the Grello car showing a number of scars down the left-hand side. I think that's actually from tyre pickup. And that rubber has been spat across the side of the car if it's run wide in certain places, and particularly on the fast sections where the rubber has obviously left the Michelin, the Falcon tyres, whatever brand it is. And the 911 has now come out, and what do we reckon? The gap's increased between the 911 and the 100. It was difficult to tell there.
It was, yeah, because have to keep the pit lane speed limits coming out of the pits, of course, and then get up fully to speed again. So this is in effect the second and third place battle, even if in actual fact it may not be second and third place once they come up to full racing speed. Because the number 31, the Fricadelli Porsche, may well have got between them and the race leader. And the number 31 car, of course, actually it shouldn't be. That'll be interesting to see where it where it pans out, because the 31 has already made his final stop. We're still waiting for the race leader, then the Falcon Motorsport BMW, to make its final stop. And it really is then just between those four cars, isn't it? The two BMWs from one from Falcon Motorsport, one from Falcon, and the two Porsches, one from Manthey and one from Fricadelli. There is four cars battling it out for the overall race lead. And the other thing just to keep an eye on is the gap in Cup 2, which is the Porsche Carrera Cup class. Where the number one car of Alexander Mees, Tim Scherbart, Steve Jans leads the way in that class. They're not that far ahead of the David Jahn and Marek Berkman car, number 117. So class Cup 2 may be one to keep an eye on. They both had their, no, they still both have to make their final stops, don't they? Numbers 1 and 117 will still have one more pit stop to make before the end of the race. Less than an hour to go though, Johnny. Until the same, four cars in with a shout at the overall victory.
You're listening to RadioLeMans.com, just one station, part of the RSL network, IMSA Radio and Radio Le Mans Extra being the others. I think there are certain weekends during this year that we might have 4 separate events that we have to try and cover with only 3 radio stations. It's entertaining, I have to say, working our way through the schedules here, just making sure that staff are deployed to the right places and at the right time. Suddenly, or fortunately, that's not a responsibility of mine.
Well, you do have to be at the right place at the right time,
I do,
Johnny.
Yes, indeed, but I don't have to decide where people have to go. That's all down to the responsible adult, Eve Hewitt, and a cracking job as always she's done for this weekend, because the team out in Canada covering the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. We're here doing VLN, Paul Truswell and Johnny Palmer. And don't forget that the World Endurance Championship, remember that, is back in action next weekend, with again full coverage here throughout the Radio Show Limited network. Qualifying on Saturday, it's a 1:45 p.m. start in the UK through till 2:55, so an hour and 10 minute show, so 1:45 through till 5 to 3 Saturday afternoon. That's the 15th of July for qualifying at the Nürburgring, at this very place. And then the following day, countdown to green begins at 11:30 a.m. UK time for a midday start through till 6 o'clock, and then we'll have a full post-race tech show as well for half an hour. So this place will look very different, I think, as far as the World Endurance Championship is concerned. Just running the Grand Prix Strecker.
And apart from anything else, part of the Nordschleife is used as car parking for trucks.
Yes.
So yes, it will look very different as Romain Dumas comes down into Breitscheid as a rescue unit, recovery intervention vehicle, operates to his right, and so he slows down quite to, it wasn't a full purple sector, it wasn't a code 60, but it was a yellow flag zone. And so he continues, having had his final pit stop, in his charge to chase down the race-leading Falcon BMW, which has yet to make his final pit stop, with 3 hours and 8 minutes elapsed of the race, and waiting to see whether or not, I think we'll probably see Jürgen Müller staying out for another lap at the end of this one that he's currently on. Just waiting for him to come into view at Tiergarten.
We might just about have the largest gap that I've seen in the race so far for the Cup 3 machines, because 979 has taken the lead and is ahead of 960, which is way back there, Paul. That's a huge margin.
It's almost 50 metres, isn't it?
I know, compared to half a car length that it's been for the rest of the race.
Yeah,
so 979 finally now in front, and I'm not sure whether that's happened to this point. It might have happened from a quirk of the pit stops, but predominantly the 960 car has always been leading whenever I've caught sight of that battle. Well, now the 979 car, which is the Müllner Motorsport machine, or for sponsorship reasons, the Mabinol Premium Motor Oil Cayman, leading its near neighbour, the Teichmann racing car, the MSC Adenauer EV entered Cayman. So the question is, who's on board these cars and who's likely to be quicker over the final few laps, because we are now inside the last 50 minutes. A 960 with a little bit of work to do here. Of course, that gap could close at any moment on the Nordschleife. They're about to head in that direction now. Car number 1 is running in 8th position, and that is the Cup 2 leader. So no longer is it the 117 car, or has it always been the one out?
No, it's been the one for the last half of the race.
Okay.
In fact, it's been the one, pretty much throughout the race. In fact, the 117 has never been ahead of it. But the 117 isn't that far behind. Trying to get a time on it. We don't get all the gaps between the cars, but I don't think the 117 is that far behind.
Might be as little as 4 seconds, because the number 1 car was timed as being 5 minutes and 53 seconds behind the overall race leader, 5:57 being the gap from leader to the 117 car. So 4 seconds is the gap at the start of lap 22 at least. So into Arenberg goes the number 1 car. And the 117 car then probably could see that car turning right underneath the bridge and then down into the foxhole, but frustratingly disappeared from sight just as they head along out of that corner. It's a question of whether the 117 is catching or losing time to the number 1 car, because the last lap time are a little bit deceptive, unless the number 1 car encountered a yellow flag incident. And just as the 117 got there, it might have been that the yellow flags were removed. Down towards Adenauer Falls goes the number 1 car.
Yeah, certainly a battle to keep an eye on in this closing 3/4 of an hour.
Now, number 3 has, on my timing screen, just completed lap 22. Did that happen a little while ago, though?
Not that long ago, no.
Okay, so, and...
But it hasn't come into the pits
on
this lap. It will come into the pits, I think, on its next lap. I did.
Right.
My schedule suggests that it should come into the pits 15:23. Yeah, so it's just completed 22 laps. Yes. It'll come through at the end of 23 laps and come into the pits. But the pit stop will happen more than half an hour before the end of the race, and the crucial point with that half an hour limit is that if you can come in the last half hour of the race, your pit stop is not constrained by a minimum time. It's only constrained by a minimum time if you come in more than half an hour. So he won't be able to do a real splash and dash, and it will be a slightly longer stop because he'll have done 8 laps on his stint, whereas the 911 car only did 7 laps on his stint, and so therefore had a shorter pit stop. So it's going to be very closely balanced indeed, I think, between 911 and 3 when they come out of their when the number 3 comes off from its final pit stop at the end of this lap.
Big margin, though, at the moment, because the cars behind the number 3 car on the road have all made their third and final stops. The 911, the 100 and the 31. Is there any indication then, Paul, that any of those 3 cars will need to come in for an extra splash? They're fine to the finish.
The 2nd, 3rd and 4th place cars have all made their final pit stop. The 5th, 6th and 7th place cars still have to make a pit stop, whereas the number 1 car, which leads the Cup 2 class, has made its final pit stop already.
Okay. Meanwhile, the 36 car, which is the BMW Z4 from Valkenhorst Motorsport, is going to leave the Tiergarten area and go back onto the Grand Prix start and finish straight. Absolutely fine to continue on for an extra lap there as well. So car 36 has only done 2 stops, but I don't know about the fuel economy for the Z4.
It will need another stop before the end of the race, the multicoloured BMW Z4.
So this team, well, ideally would like to get into that final half an hour where they can literally do a splash, but they've got another 15 minutes to try and find. Well, 9 minutes already wrapped up by the next lap. Question is, can it do another lap? And where did it last pit? 36 car. That down on your notes.
Stops on lap 15, so...
Right, so we're looking at 23 again for that then.
So yes, it probably will go to 23.
Okay, so Pasavak, well, might be at the wheel. He's always listed at the side of car 36.
Actually, just check that. The 36 car, I think, will make its final pit stop in the last half hour. It's just about there.
Okay, so it needs to do this lap and one more.
Precisely.
By which time it should be fine to do that. Now, is this the lead for the M235i class? That's the 691 car that's certainly been in with a chance of a lead for much of the race, and it is flapping bodywork. Front left corner is askew, and that looks like the wheel arch, which is starting to peel back very slightly, has in attendance the 675 car.
That's first and second in Cup 5.
Brilliant. Okay.
So they've got a truly great battle. Their best lap is 0.06 of a second away from each other, and the 675 at the moment closing in on 691, which is Manfred Schei at the wheel of the 691 car.
So did we hear about dramas for the 666 car? Yes, that's not
Yes, we
completed.
did. That car stopped out on the circuit, I think.
Okay. So that took, unfortunately, a real strong competitor for a podium finish out of the equation, but that always presents another opportunity. So 691, 675, almost rubbing bodywork, almost leaning on each other, but just a little bit of free air given to these two. I'm not sure whether it'll be the same in 42 minutes time. 43 minutes still on the clock, and the question is, of course, where do these cars circulate related to the leader, because the checkered flag will come out at the end of 4 hours and then the next completed lap, effectively. So if it takes 3 minutes before the leader arrives out of Tiergarten, then that is the point when the checkered flag is displayed, unlike for the 24 hours around this place when the checkered flag just comes out regardless of where cars are positioned around the track.
Pit stop for the number 100 BMW, so this is its scheduled pit stop. And it's not a scheduled pit, it's an unscheduled pit stop for the 100, because he's already made his final stop, hasn't he? So, no, in fact, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's not a pit stop, that's, so it's number 100, sorry about that. Not making a pit stop, but what has happened is that the 31 Fricadelli car, as I thought it might, because of a shorter pit stop, has got itself back into second place. So 31 is now probably back in the hands of Frank Stippler, ahead of Romain Dumas at the wheel of the Manthey Porsche. So it's BMW leads with the Falcon car, number 3, but with a pit stop to come, which it is making now. Then we have 2 Porsches in second and third places. Now, where will they come through? Will they come through whilst the BMW is in the pits, or will the BMW get out before the 2 Porsches come through? So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But it's going to be a very close-run thing, Johnny, as the Falcon Motorsports BMW comes into the pits. And this will be Steph Dusseldorp getting into the car. Jörg Müller gets out.
Meanwhile, life continues on around the race-leading pit stop, because the little Mercedes-Benz SLK 350 being called into the garage. Now, quite a lot of detergent-like substance being put on the windscreen just to make sure that it's free of bugs and any rubber pickup that may have come from tyres, making sure that that windscreen is as clean as it can be for this final and crucial stint for the returning team, Falcon Motorsports, bringing 2 cars here. And what a great reward this would be. And it all of a sudden becomes a very good decision from this team to come back to compete in VLN. Well, there is the 31. I was going
to say, we need to see where the second place car is, because this is the 31 car then on the Döttinger Höhe at the moment, whilst the BMW receives service. So it's Fricadelli Porsche charging down the Döttinger Höhe, whilst Jörg Müller hands the car over to Steph Dusseldorp. Dusseldorp we saw already in the car, fuel going in though. And the other question is, how far back is Romain Dumas in the Manthey Porsche from that Fricadelli car, Johnny? Because I can't see it in the background there.
No, so has that gap grown through this lap? The 31 car threading its way through Tiergarten, 40 minutes left on the clock. And over the line, that Porsche's about to go. Is the BMW yet on the move? Yes, it is. But I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to being up to speed when the Porsche swoops by to its left. So that is a lead change. The Fricadelli car on Falcon tyres, remember. And a number of listeners on the collective suggesting that is a departure from previous tyre manufacturers. Remember, it was a disaster for VLN 3 for this team. Effectively, 1 retirement and 1 out for a test session. So has there been a contractual realignment as far as their tyre manufacturer is concerned? And if so, looks to be a good move so far. But the thing is, that BMW's shown great pace through the course of this race. It's now got 39 minutes to try and hunt down the number 31 Porsche. Meanwhile, 911 into turn number 1. This is the Grello car of Richard Lietz and Romain Dumas, exiting the first corner and running in third. And the 100 car was the car you were questioning about its whereabouts, was it?
Yes, I think I got a bit excited about it because I thought it was in the pits again, but it was just me misreading the screen. So, but the 100 car has fallen away. Yes. It should be coming through in a moment in fourth place, but possibly behind the number 35 car, Jordan Fresson, which has made his pit stop, but it was a shorter pit stop for the 35. And as a result of that, the 100 Falcon Horse BMW has fallen back.
911 very nearly didn't get by one of the back markers into the Michael Schumacher S there. Had to take 2 bites of the cherry. And I don't think Romain Dumas was fully certain that the driver of that BMW 3 Series, I'm going to say, seeing it from distance, had seen the yellow and green Porsche. That would have been a hard thing to stand up in court. I didn't see one of the most lurid and day-glow coloured cars, my lord. But into Michael Schumacher S, finally the BMW driver did ease off and allow that Porsche by safely. Now, here's the 100 car, Paul, into Hatzenbach. So it is, well, is it further up the road than the 911?
Yes, it's behind the 911.
It's behind the 911, you sure about that?
Yeah, sure-ish.
Okay. I didn't think the 911 was quite as far round the track as this, but may well see it away in the distance. Snaking our way through Hatzenbach and now down towards the road crossing with one of the Bonk Motorsports BMW M235Is just ahead. 678, and car 100 could do with knowing where this is in the order, but yes, 23 laps done. So at the start of lap 24, the gap was 7 seconds. Would that tally?
Yes, that's about right, I reckon.
Okay.
And that is somewhere in the distance there, going down towards Schwedenkreuz, is the Manthey Porsche, I think, Johnny.
I think, yes, that's